Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our webinar on foster care 18 to 21 and the Guardianship Assistance Program and what you need to know. My name is Crystal Coble, and I will be moderating this webinar today. A little bit of information before we get started. There are handouts for this webinar that have the slides included and lots of useful information that can be helpful after our time together today. So you can either click on the button on the slide that says click for handouts, or John has also put a link in the chat box that you can also access the handouts there for today's webinar. So we are going to go ahead and get started. A little bit of information about this webinar. It was developed through funding from the North Carolina Division of Social Services by the Family and Children's Resource Program, which is part of the Jordan Institute for Families here at the UNC Chapel Hill School of Social Work. This webinar, we're going to focus on two new programs that will go into effect in North Carolina on January 1st of next year, which is much sooner than we all probably anticipate. We have about 2 weeks left. The two programs that we're going to talk about, the Guardianship Assistance Program and the Foster Care 18 to 21 program. We're hoping that by the end of this session, you will be able to explain to others why North Carolina is adding these programs, and also have a message to share with others, including key takeaways and implementation points about these programs that can be helpful. And then also information around taking specific steps needed to prepare for successful implementation of these programs. Many of you have already found the chat box and are saying good morning. We have lots of people participating in groups. You'll see that there are two options in that chat box in the bottom left corner that lets you either, you can send a message to everyone and everyone in the room will be able to see it, or you can also send a message just to the hosts, meaning those of us here on campus at UNC working to facilitate the webinar. This is going to be the primary way that you can communicate with us through our time together. You can use this box to send in questions or comments. One thing about questions, we're going to try our best to answer the questions that come up during the event. The box does sometimes move really fast with as many people typing in it as we have, but we do have someone here who is working to help us keep track of all of your questions, and we're hoping to get back to them. A little bit more information about us being able to answer your questions while we're here. Since this is just one 90-minute webinar and we have lots of very useful information that we're going to cover, and we also have over 400 people registered and participating today, so we know we will not be able to get to everyone's question and to address every single question, but we're going to do our best. In order to help with some of this, there's also going to be a follow-up document developed that will include answers to questions that are asked during the webinar, and then we will email that document out to all registered participants, and it will also be posted with the webinar recording. The recorded webinar will also reside on our webpage here at the Family and Children's Resource Program, and you can see the link to that there, and also the link will be in the handouts on the slides there as well in case you have trouble finding it. So those are some information that will help with follow-up after our webinar for any continued questions and being able to access additional information. Another way to get our attention throughout this webinar is through the icons in the toolbar at the top. If you click on the drop-down box, you'll see additional icons that will allow you to communicate with us, allow you to raise your hand, let us know to speak louder or softer. Lots of different options there for other ways to communicate with us. So a little about who all we have here with us today. We have registrants participating in our webinar from 378 are from County DSS. We have 7 folks registered from the division, and we also have 48 people registered from private agencies. So we're excited that you're all here and that we could all come together to learn a lot of information about 2 new programs that are going to be happening in January. And the first thing we're going to do is to get started by doing some introductions. Again, my name is Crystal Coble. I am a clinical instructor here at the UNC School of Social Work, and we are with the Family and Children's Resource Program, which is part of the Jordan Institute for Families, which is all housed under the School of Social Work here. We also have technical help from our colleagues Philip Armfield and John McMahon that are helping us put this webinar on. And we have several guests that are here to speak about these topics. So I'll go ahead and let them introduce themselves, and we'll start with Erin.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Erin Baluyot. I am the program coordinator for foster care 18 to 21. I work at the division on the policy team, and I'm very excited to be with you here today to talk more about foster care 18 to 21.
Good morning, everyone. This is Susan Sanderson, and I am the Title IV coordinator with the Division of Social Services. And I'm glad to have you all on the call this morning.
Hello everyone, I am Angelica Brice. I work with SaySo, which stands for Strong Every Youth Speaking Out. I am here today to give you the perspective of a teen who is 18 and will be enjoying this new program.
Thank you all for being here and assisting with this webinar. And we are going to work on getting Angelica's volume turned up a little bit so that you all can hear the wonderful things that she has to say. So we're going to work on getting that so you'll be able to hear her. Also, we are going to share the contact information towards the end of the webinar for those that are here, guests that are here with us speaking. So we'll be able to share that with you. And I will go ahead and turn it over to Susan to get started on the Guardianship Assistance Program.
I'm sure that most of you have already been hearing information about the Guardianship Assistance Program, but we will be spending some time this morning talking about the basics of guardianship assistance, but more importantly, looking at the practice implications. First thing to understand is that the Guardianship Assistance Program is not a new permanent plan. It is simply a way that we can provide financial assistance to prospective guardians whenever adoption and reunification are not appropriate permanent plans. This is an option that was made available to states through the Fostering Connections Act of 2008 and will be implemented as of January the 1st, 2017. There are currently 32 states and 8 tribes that have already implemented and have approved Title IV-E plans. The rates that will be available are at the standard board rate for youth 14 to 18, which is $634. And one of the more exciting things I think about guardianship assistance is that benefits can continue to age 21 for youth who enter into guardianship assistance arrangements at the age of 16 or 17. I wanted to spend a few minutes talking about why guardianship assistance is a good option for many of our youth in care. And I think one of the most important pieces is that it does provide the opportunity for youth to remain connected to their family, community, and their cultures. And it also provides youth with the opportunity to connect with relatives, kin, or their foster parents in those situations in which adoption or reunification are not appropriate. We often have situations where teenagers remain in care because there are no other financial supports available. So implementation of guardianship assistance will provide that needed assistance as well as Medicaid. So this will allow us to have many additional teens exiting foster care and will reduce the amount of agency supervision and intervention that is required. There are a number of criteria that come into play with guardianship assistance, or you will often hear us refer to it as the GAP program. And one thing that our legislators did do was require that this be a cost-neutral program. So that is part of the reason you will see pieces in here such as the licensing requirement. Federal policy actually does have a lot of flexibility in how states opt to implement. But in North Carolina, the criteria that has been established is that reunification and adoption has been ruled out as appropriate permanent plans. The child has to currently be in a North Carolina child welfare agency. And the important piece for individuals to remember is that the youth does have to have been in that home as a licensed home for the 6 consecutive months prior to entry into a guardianship assistance arrangement. So the child could have been in that home for several months prior to that, or may have entered into that home as it was licensed. But there does have to be 6 consecutive months in which the home was licensed and payments were received. We generally talk about GAP specific to the age requirement, and it is for youth that are at least 14 years of age but have not yet reached the age of 18. However, it is also an option for any sibling, regardless of their age. If it is a sibling to a youth that does meet the age requirements and they are being placed together in a guardianship arrangement, then that sibling can qualify for guardianship assistance regardless of their age. The guardian has to be committed to providing permanence for this youth. And there has to be a strong attachment between the youth and the guardian. Obviously, for any youth over the age of 14, we are required to get their opinion on the guardianship arrangement, and that's actually policy for any permanence option, so that is not anything that is specific to guardianship assistance. There are some practice implications that come into play with guardianship assistance. And the first is that concurrent planning is especially critical, as early as possible, in those cases in which the possibility of guardianship assistance exists. As we noted earlier, you have to have ruled out reunification and adoption, but that is certainly something that can occur at the same time that you look at establishing the plan of guardianship. There should also be conversations regularly during CFTs, as well as permanency planning action team meetings, around the permanency options and whether the youth may qualify for guardianship assistance if the other plans are ruled out. And another piece that I think counties will have to give a lot of consideration to is the requirement that the prospective guardian be licensed. States had the option of identifying relative, because guardianship assistance does at times identify relative or kin, but states had the discretion to identify relative and it could be anybody. There was no requirement that they meet any specific relative definitions. And so in the state of North Carolina, while there is nowhere that it is strictly defined, any individual that has been licensed for those 6 consecutive months and the child has been placed in that home could qualify for the guardianship assistance. However, as I noted previously, I do think with our relatives, the importance of timely licensure becomes especially critical in these cases in order to ensure timely permanence. The other piece that I want to make sure everyone realizes is that GAP is not an easy way to get children out of care. While it is certainly a faster option for permanence than adoption, it is appropriate only after adoption has been ruled out. There are some considerations we discussed briefly, but just to focus a little more on the discussions that need to happen during CFTs and permanency planning team meetings. And that is verifying why reunification and adoption has been ruled out and making sure that you have explored those permanency options. If there is a separation of the youth from siblings, there needs to be some discussion about why this separation has occurred and if it is possible that they could be placed together. And again, there needs to be some discussion around why guardianship is in the youth's best interest. As I noted earlier, we have to remember that guardianship should be considered only when you have ruled out reunification and adoption. And then ultimately, we need to verify the youth's eligibility for GAP benefits. As we noted, the child has to either meet the age requirements or has to be a sibling that has been placed with a sibling that meets those age requirements. So obviously, if we're looking at a 5-year-old that has been placed with a relative, it is unlikely, at least I hope it's very unlikely, that guardianship assistance would be a potential at some point before the child exits foster care. Starting early and being serious in our intent at addressing this is very important. We need to talk with our youth, the parents, and prospective guardians about permanency options as soon as the child has been placed in care. There is a rough timeline for what this process will look like. Again, as I noted, it is not a new permanent plan, but it is simply financial assistance that is now available for individuals that are willing to accept guardianship. And there is a requirement that adoption and reunification is ruled out. And what that means simply is that the court has determined that reunification and or adoption are not appropriate permanent plans for the youth. I think reunification is certainly an easier plan to rule out at times. But with adoption, it may be something as simple as that the youth is not interested in being adopted, or that it is a relative who has placement and they are not comfortable with terminating parental rights. So the court would need to determine that they were not appropriate plans, and at the same time, or at a follow-up hearing, the court would need to determine that guardianship was the most appropriate plan for the youth. Realize that this is more confusing for individuals now that North Carolina has concurrent planning. But at the point that the county is clearly moving toward guardianship, at that point your concurrent plan would most appropriately be guardianship with a secondary plan of custody to the relative or court-appointed caretaker, depending on the relationship that exists between the prospective guardian and the child. The Guardianship Assistance Checklist and Agreement would need to be completed at that point that the court has sanctioned the plan of guardianship. And you will notice that the checklist and agreement look very familiar. We did model those after the Adoption Assistance Checklist and Agreement to make it easier for counties. The court would then grant legal guardianship as soon as that paperwork has been completed, and the monthly cash assistance would begin the month following the court's entry into a guardianship arrangement. There are a couple of things that come into play around messaging with guardianship assistance. And the first that I want to focus on briefly is around relative notifications. One of the other pieces that came out of the Fostering Connections Act was the requirement that relatives be notified within 30 days of a child being placed into custody, and that part of those notifications included notifying relatives of their right to be licensed, as well as sharing with them their options for placement and the requirements that would come into play. So in those situations in which guardianship assistance could be a potential outcome, then that would certainly be part of the early conversations that we would be having with those relatives. Also, in the CFT and PPAT meetings, we would need to ensure that we are communicating with everyone the options for permanence, why certain plans may or may not be appropriate for that youth, as well as discussing the requirements for guardianship assistance. As I noted earlier, there is that licensing requirement, and the individual has to have been licensed and receiving payments for at least 6 months for that juvenile. And so that does create a time restraint that folks would really need to be aware of to ensure timely permanence. I know that there have been some questions, so I will take just a few moments to go over some of the ones that we have seen. And one of those is around termination of parental rights. In those situations in which parental rights have already been terminated, obviously reunification has been ruled out, and you would simply need verification from the courts that for whatever reason adoption is no longer in that youth's best interest. So you would not need to worry about a reinstatement of parental rights. You could simply move forward with the guardianship and provision of guardianship assistance if the age or sibling requirements were met. And yes, GAP would be available to youth that were in North Carolina custody and placed out of state. Medicaid is provided with GAP, just as it is with adoption assistance. However, it is one thing that is not as regulated by ACF, Administration for Children, Youth, and Families. So counties probably will need to have much more contact with other states to assist families in getting Medicaid approved. For a 4E eligible child, Medicaid is categorical. And for a child who is state funded in foster care, they would be 4B funded for GAP. And in that situation, again, there are some issues that could affect eligibility. The monthly assistance does go directly to the guardian for youth 14 to 18. And the same is true for those young adults 18 to 21 that meet the education or employment requirements, because our agreements are directly with the guardian, then they would be the payee as long as the young adult meets requirements. And as I noted earlier, the individual who assumes guardianship does have to have been licensed for at least 6 consecutive months, but there are no requirements that they be willing to assume placement of other children or that they would maintain their license after they have been granted guardianship. That certainly would be one of the positives, and I think we will see that occasionally. However, there is no requirement. They could allow their license to terminate the day after they were granted guardianship.
Thank you for taking some time to answer some questions that have come up, Susan. And once again, we are continuing to track your questions. So any that we weren't able to get to around the Guardianship Assistance Program, we will get the answers to you on that follow-up document. So we want to go ahead and turn things over to Erin to talk a little about the Foster Care 18 to 21 program.
Good morning again. Another new program that will be implemented on January 1st is Foster Care 18 to 21. So today we're going to take a brief look at what the program entails, and then we will focus more on how to create a successful extended foster care program and how to message this program to our young adults and youth approaching their 18th birthday so that they understand the benefits of the program. Foster Care 18 to 21 is the name of North Carolina's extended foster care program. It gives young adults the opportunity to remain in foster care after turning 18 and continue to receive services and support while they are going through the critical transition to adulthood. This program stems from the 2008 Fostering Connections to Success and Increasing Adoptions Act, which allows states to receive federal Title IV reimbursement for costs associated with young adults remaining in foster care beyond their 18th birthday. And then in October of last year, the North Carolina General Assembly revised several statutes in order to extend the provision of foster care benefits and services to young adults between the ages of 18 and up to 21 years of age here in North Carolina. One of the first questions I am asked when talking about this program is, how is this different from CARS? As you know, CARS is what we currently have in place for young adults who are in foster care and have opted to continue receiving services. So the first difference is funding. With CARS, we have a county and state share in regards to funding these placements. With Foster Care 18 to 21, it will now be a Title IV and a state foster home fund share. So counties are no longer obligated to be a part of funding those placements. The next big difference is eligibility. Of course, with CARS, eligibility requirements include any type of schooling, so secondary, post-secondary, any type of vocational or technical training. And then with Foster Care 18 to 21, those requirements have been expanded to include employment, a program or activity that is designed to remove barriers to employment, and it also includes those young adults who may have a medical condition or a disability that would prohibit them from meeting those other requirements. In regards to placements, of course, with CARS, those young adults are required to be placed in a licensed placement. But with Foster Care 18 to 21, those placements are no longer required to be licensed. So they can be living in a non-licensed placement and still receive services and benefits. One thing that is not on the chart here is court participation. With CARS, of course, there is no court participation, but with this new program, there is minimal requirements for court. And then finally, around county participation, we all know that with CARS, That is something optional for counties, but with foster care 18 to 21, it is required that counties provide these services for any young adult who wishes to be in the program and meets eligibility criteria. In regards to the program eligibility requirements, they include being enrolled in school or a program leading to an equivalent credential, such as a GED program or adult high school. The second requirement is being enrolled in an institution that provides post-secondary or vocational education. So this could be a 2- or 4-year college, any type of vocational education. The third requirement is where we can really become creative with our young adults, as this would include any program or activity designed to promote or remove barriers to employment. So this could be anything such as a resume writing class, a volunteer opportunity in the community. It could be job shadowing, an internship, or even a job readiness class. The fourth requirement is being employed for at least 80 hours per month. And then finally is the requirement that would include those young adults who may have a medical disability or condition that would keep them from meeting the educational or employment requirements. This could be something that is short-term, such as a broken leg that is keeping the young adult out of work for 6 weeks, or it could be something that is more long-term as well. So in order to be in the program and receive benefits and services, a young adult must meet at least one of the 5 requirements. And in addition, they must also have been in foster care upon their 18th birthday. So they must have exited out of foster care. They must be between the ages of 18 but not yet 21 years old. So we will be serving 18, 19, and 20-year-olds in this program. They will also need to be willing to enter into a voluntary placement agreement with the County Department of Social Services and abide by the provisions within the agreement. And they will also need to agree to reside in a placement that has been approved by the Department of Social Services. All young adults who are eligible for the program are also eligible to receive monthly foster care maintenance payments. And these payments are going to be the standard board rate of $634. They can also be the standardized rates for residential treatment facilities and child placing agencies. So if you have a young adult who needs a higher level of care and is placed in a residential treatment facility that requires the maximum rate of $4,516 a month, the young adult would be eligible to receive that rate. The 2 sources of funding for this program include Title 4E funds and state foster home funds. And as I mentioned earlier, included in general statute is for counties to be held harmless from contributing 50% of the non-federal share. And that means counties have no obligation to fund any portion of these placements. State foster home funds will cover 100% of the non-federal share. In regards to determining 4E eligibility, each entry into this program will be considered a new foster care episode. So even if you have a smooth transition where a youth is approaching their 18th birthday, they're in foster care, and they have opted to continue in foster care 18 to 21 once they turn 18, it still would be considered a new entry at that time. And a new eligibility determination will be completed upon every entry and re-entry. This is going to be done on the DSS 5120E, which is an extension of what you know as the DSS 5120, the determination of foster care benefits and/or medical assistance only. And when you are doing these determinations, we are only going to be looking at the young adult. We do not have to take into consideration the family in which they were removed from as a minor, or even any relatives that the young adult may currently be residing with. So the young adult will be the family unit. And because of that, we do anticipate that the majority of these young adults will be 4E eligible. Foster care maintenance payments can be made to a licensed facility such as a foster parent, child placement agency, or group home. The payment can also be made to unlicensed placements. So they can be made directly to the young adult. They can be made to a rental agency or landlord, or to a relative or a kinship placement. These board payments can be used for any type of living cost, such as room and board or rent. It could be used for food, transportation, utilities, even cell phone bills. Again, anything that would be considered a living expense. Young adults receiving supplemental income, such as SSI, and young adults receiving educational training vouchers or funding through NC Reach are still eligible to receive a monthly foster care maintenance payment as well. Young adults will enter the program by signing a voluntary placement agreement for foster care 18 to 21, along with the county child welfare agency. The young adult should be an equal party in the agreement and must agree to all of the provisions within the agreement. The young adult's rights and responsibilities are clearly outlined within the agreement and must be discussed in detail with the young adult before they sign the VPA. The agreement is effective the date of the young adult's 18th birthday, or if the young adult is 18 years old or older at the time they sign, it will become effective the date it is signed. After the young adult and County Department of Social Services enters into a VPA for foster care 18 to 21, an initial review hearing must be held within 90 days of the date the VPA is signed. And during this hearing, the court will review and make findings on whether or not the placement is in the best interest of the young adult. So this is not only looking at the physical placement, but also placement in the program. And then the court will also review services that have been or should be provided to the young adult to both improve the placement as well as to further the young adult's educational or vocational ambitions. This is the only required hearing. However, additional hearings can be held at the written request of either the young adult or at the request of the County Child Welfare Agency. The court may also schedule additional hearings to review the placement and progress of the young adult if the court wishes to do so. And per general statute, there will be no guardian ad litem appointed to young adults in this program, and they also will not be given a court-appointed attorney. In regards to county oversight, counties will be responsible for developing and maintaining the transitional living plan in partnership with the young adult. This is a document that will be initially developed in the foster care case and then continued through the life of the foster care 18 to 21 case. The transitional living plan will include goals, activities, and independent living skills for the young adult to work towards. It will also document meaningful adult relationships and supports and include a fully developed backup plan. Transitional living plans should be young adult driven, and the young adult should really take ownership of the development and the maintenance of the plan with the guidance and the support of the social worker and their support team. Counties will also complete a transition plan in partnership with the young adult within 90 days of his or her 21st birthday, or within 90 days of a planned exit from the program. The 90-day transition plan is a personalized plan that outlines resources and supports that the young adult may need in preparation of exiting the program and transitioning to self-sufficiency. It includes specific options regarding how to access housing, health insurance, education, and services within the community. If the young adult makes an unplanned exit from the program, efforts should still be made to complete the transition plan and provide a copy of that plan to the young adult. Periodic case reviews will also be required for foster care 18 to 21 cases. This will be done through transition support team meetings, or TST meetings. The transition support team will be made up of supportive adults who will assist the young adult in the development of goals on the transitional living plan, They will also help the young adult identify resources and services. They will offer support and review the young adult's progress. Members will include the social worker, the young adult, and at least one supportive adult identified by the young adult. There may be other members of the team, such as the placement provider or other service providers. However, the young adult must agree to each member of the team. The team meetings should be led primarily by the young adult, allowing them to take the lead, choose the location of the meeting, and even facilitate the meeting when appropriate will teach these young adults leadership skills and also help them take ownership of their plan and their meeting, as they will play a large role in the development and maintenance of their plans. In addition, monthly contacts are required. However, not all are required to be face-to-face, and not all are required to be done in the home. So looking at a 3-month cycle, 2 of the 3 visits must be made face-to-face. The non-face-to-face visit can be done by phone, by email, or even Skype. This contact must still address the same topics that would normally be addressed during a face-to-face contact and cannot occur in consecutive months. Quarterly in-home visits will also be required to assess the young adult's living arrangement and determine whether or not ongoing approval of the placement is appropriate. Counties will also be responsible for providing ongoing independent living skills and support services to assist these young adults with their transition into adulthood. The role of the county agency is to provide guidance and support as these young adults make decisions about their future, while at the same time ensuring that they are receiving the tools necessary to become self-sufficient. It will be important for counties to ensure young adults are continuously meeting eligibility requirements for the program. There should be ongoing conversation during monthly contacts, during transition support team meetings, regarding the young adult's participation in school or work or training program, whichever eligibility requirement they are meeting. But in addition to that, there should also be written verification that eligibility requirements are continuously being met, such as a report card, a transcript, or a paycheck stub if they are employed. And this should be obtained and placed in the record every 6 months. Part of this program is also assisting young adults with locating and securing placements. This should be done in partnership with the young adult, and the young adult should have a say in his or her preference of placement. Counties will be responsible for approving each placement and providing ongoing oversight of the placement as well. And finally, counties will be responsible for assisting young adults with completing yearly credit checks. And this is something that is federally required for youth in foster care and will continue with young adults in extended foster care. However, it will look just a bit different. Because these are adults, they must now give permission for us to assist them in running their credit checks. And this should be done, of course, with the young adults, while at the same time teaching him or her how to check their credit report and the importance of doing so. These are the 3 types of eligible placements for young adults in foster care 18 to 21. We have broken them down into 3 different categories, and the first is a foster care home or facility. This includes any type of licensed facility, such as a family foster home, a therapeutic home, or a group home. The second is a college or university dormitory. This is any type of college or university-sponsored dormitory or apartment, or even a college co-op. And finally, we have semi-supervised independent living arrangements. This can be any type of shared housing situation, including the young adult living in an apartment with another 18-year-old, living with a relative, or in a kinship placement. And this could also include a host home. And what I mean by that is a home in which the family is renting a room, or maybe even an apartment above their garage, to the young adult. This type of placement can also be a single room occupancy, such as a non-college dormitory or a hotel room. Since this is a new option under foster care 18 to 21, let's take a closer look at what exactly semi-supervised independent living settings are. So they are defined as a non-licensed, least restrictive living arrangement with approval and ongoing oversight by the County Department of Social Services. This type of placement gives the young adult the opportunity to live out on their own while still receiving support services to help them become more independent and self-sufficient. Keep in mind that the purpose of the program and the goal of the program is for these young adults to become independent and to allow them more opportunities for independence. These type of placements should be selected based on the young adult's best interest. Each young adult should be assessed individually, taking into consideration the young adult's individual needs, what the goals on their transitional living plan are, and what progress they've made towards those goals, as well as their personal preference. This type of placement is appropriate for young adults who are high functioning, who have shown high levels of responsibility, and who are developmentally sound and capable of living on their own. There are several reasons why foster care 18 to 21 benefits and services can be terminated, and one is that the young adult turns 21 years old. At that time, the young adult would no longer be eligible for the program based on their age. The next is the young adult no longer meets eligibility criteria and has shown little to no effort to achieve eligibility. The young adult can request for services to be terminated at any time, either verbally or in writing. This program is voluntary on the young adult's behalf, and therefore they can walk away from services at any time. And other than the young adult, the only other entity that can terminate services is the court. This can be done any time the court has determined the young adult has violated the voluntary placement agreement. The court may also terminate services due to the lack of progress or effort the young adult is making towards achieving goals, or because the young adult will not agree to reside in an approved placement, or maybe the young adult has left the approved placement for an extended period of time without permission from the agency. Anytime the court terminates services, the young adult must be sent a 30-day written notice, which will inform them that their services will be terminated 30 days from the date of the notice. There must also be instruction within the notice on how the young adult can motion the court for a review if they are in disagreement with the court's decision to terminate services. A motion for review form, which is the AOC J140, must also be attached to the notice. The young adult does have the right to appeal the court's decision if they are in disagreement, and this is their process to do so. Young adults will be able to re-enter foster care 18 to 21 as many times as they wish, as long as they meet the eligibility criteria, which is the same criteria that we reviewed earlier. So again, they must be between the ages of 18 but not yet 21. They must have exited foster care at age 18. They must meet at least one of the 5 program eligibility requirements. They must be willing to enter into the VPA with the county DSS and abide by the provisions and responsibilities within that agreement, as well as be willing to reside in an approved placement. So I can see that we have many questions that have come up, so I will try my best to answer as many as I can. I do want to mention that you can certainly reach out to me directly if your answers or your questions do not get answered today. And there are also other resources available that have been recorded, such as the 4E call from October that you can go back to. It is on the website, and you can access that to have any questions answered. But I will try to take a look at a few of the questions you have now. So if the youth wants to do this program, do they have to have been in a licensed placement prior to turning 18? And the answer is no. It doesn't matter what their placement was prior to turning 18, as long as they were in the custody of DSS at the age of 18, they would be eligible for the program. So what about youth who have significant mental health diagnosis? That's a great question, and one that we really don't have a specific answer for at this time. I will say that we understand and recognize that this is an area that we do need to focus on. We have many young adults who do have significant mental health issues, as well as those young adults who may have been deemed incompetent by the court. And what my guidance to you would be around that is take into consideration what the goal of foster care 18 to 21 is, and that goal is to be independent and self-sufficient. So if a young adult who does suffer from mental health diagnoses or any kind of other medical condition, but they could still be independent on some level or self-sufficient in some way, we certainly would want them to take advantage of this new program. So it's really a matter of looking at each case on a case-by-case basis to determine if this program would benefit them. And in the future, we will be working with our partners over at the Division of Aging, as well as others in the community who work with adult guardianship, to determine what this really should look like and how we can braid these two programs of adult services and foster care 18 to 21 together to really benefit these young adults who need both services. For young adults who are either missing or incarcerated on their 18th birthday, they will still be eligible to return and enter the program as long as eligibility criteria are being met. This may be something a little different than some of you heard on a links call, but we took a step back and really considered this and determined that it really is in their best interest for this program to be available to them. So no matter if they are AWOL or if they are incarcerated on their 18th birthday, as long as they are still in the custody of the county DSS upon their 18th birthday, then they would be eligible to later come back and enter into this program. Let's see, what else do we have? So a placement at a college dorm can work, and the answer to that is yes. One of the options is being placed in a college or university dormitory, and that would be an approved placement. And actually with those placements, the quarterly in-home assessment is not required as long as the dorm or apartment is a college or university sponsored placement. Then the quarterly assessments will not be required. And I know that there's a ton more questions, and we will certainly complete a follow-up document and hope to answer all of your questions. But again, feel free to reach out to me directly to have your answers or your questions answered. So I am going to move on to the second portion of foster care 18 to 21. And when it comes to implementing this program, it will be very important to understand the benefits of the program, as well as how to create a successful program here in North Carolina. So now we're going to focus on how to implement services the right way. It is recognized that 18 is just simply too young for some emerging adults to be self-sufficient. Extending foster care gives young adults who want additional support and the opportunity to spend more time in foster care as they transition to independence. So a recent study was conducted in the Midwest, which followed over 700 young adults who exited foster care from Iowa, Illinois, and Wisconsin. And the study compared the young adults who exited foster care at age 18 to young adults who remained in an extended foster care program. And when they followed up with the young adults at age 19, they found that some of the benefits related to staying, that there were some benefits related to staying in foster care longer. And those include that those young adults who were in extended foster care were twice as likely to have a job and be enrolled in school or a training program. And the young adults who obtained a high school diploma or GED were over 3 times as likely to be enrolled in a 2- or 4-year college. Research has also shown that young adults who opt out of extended foster care have experienced lower income, less access to education, more health problems, and more involvement in the criminal justice system. And the studies conclude that young adults leaving foster care really need more support during their transition to adulthood. It's going to be very important to recognize what it will take to create a successful foster care 18 to 21 program. And the first thing is the program should be developmentally appropriate. So it should meet the developmental needs of young adults, which are very different from the needs of children in foster care. So simply extending the policies and practices we have in place for children are not going to meet the needs of young adults who are going through the transition to adulthood. It's only going to delay these young adults from aging out of foster care without the skills necessary to be self-sufficient. We must also take into consideration the developmental impact of trauma and loss. We must remember that these young adults have experienced varying levels of trauma, and their needs are going to be different based on the trauma and loss that they have experienced. The program should also be geared towards achieving permanency through independence. Independence is the goal of this program, and these young adults need to be given the same opportunities to be independent as other young adults their same age. They need to be connected with caring relationships, allowed to make their own decisions, and they need to be allowed to make their own mistakes and to learn from those mistakes. They shouldn't be held to any higher standards than other 18, 19, and 20-year-olds. We do not want to hold their hands through this process. Rather, we want them to learn decision-making skills and take ownership of the decisions they are making about their future. And again, we don't want this to simply be a postponing of aging out of foster care with a disconnected adulthood. And then finally, it's also very important to create a young adult-driven program. We should listen to what these young adults are saying about their plans, services they need, and goals that they want to achieve, and advocate for what they are saying that they need. We should also allow young adults to take the lead in transition planning. This is their life, it is their future, and they should play a large role in planning and decision making. This program is going to require a culture shift regarding the way we think about permanency for young adults. Again, we want them to achieve permanency through independence, and to do so will require us to rethink our service delivery to them. We must remember that these are young adults, and we must be responsive and respectful of the needs of each individual that we serve. What we feel is in the best interest of the young adult may not be what he or she feels is in their best interest, and we must be willing to respect that. We want to create opportunities for success while allowing young adults to make decisions about the direction of their lives and see the positive outcomes of the decisions that they are making. Offering quality transition planning that is young adult-centered and strength-based while offering guidance and support along the way is key to a successful program. And always keep in mind that the goal of foster care 18 to 21 is for young adults to become independent and successful. These are the values and principles that should guide our work with young adults in foster care 18 to 21. We should ensure that all young adults establish and maintain permanent, lifelong connections to caring and committed adults. We should allow young adults to gain real-life experiences with independence and allow them to learn from their mistakes. We should work in partnership with young adults to develop and reach independent living goals. We should also empower young adults to take ownership of planning and developing goals while they are developing decision-making skills along the way. And our role is to simply be a safety net for young adults during this transition to self-sufficiency so they can successfully live as independent adults in the community. And now I will hand it over to Angelica, who will talk to you a little bit about engaging young adults.
I want to talk to you about why would anyone want to stay in foster care after the age of 18. Continuing to stay in foster care 18 to 21 gives them more time to grow up and prepare for transition to adulthood by giving you time to get yourself established and figure out what you want. A lot of times we turn 18, we get the big head. I can do what I want to do. I want to do what I want to do. I got this. I'm ready to go out into the real world. But once you get out there, most of the time you're not ready. And so now with this new program, you'll have the option not to do that and just kind of think about it and see if this is better off for you. Also, it gives you flexibility to continue with your higher education or to work full-time. Young people like having options. And with foster care, young people have the choice whether they will stay in school or work. But because they now have an option, it is more appealing. Things that seem more appealing to us, we're more likely to gravitate to it. It also gives them an opportunity for continued housing and caregiver support. Youth who have good relationships with their foster homes or in group homes may not have other housing options and may choose to stay in care beyond 18 because they like where they are and things are working out. No one wants to have to move anywhere when you've been somewhere where you like and feel like that's going to be the best placement for you. It's great to have this option. Talk to your parents that you're living with and see if they agree with it, because going somewhere else and trying to find someone else who will be there to support you through your transition from 18 to 21 is very difficult, because you know us older teens, most people don't want to deal with us. There are options for young adults to live on their own in a less restrictive environment with a roommate or a relative. And with that, you know, you kind of get to be on your own somewhat, paying your bills with the money they're giving you, and kind of see what it would be like being on your own with the support of your foster parents. Also, it gives young adults the ability to experience greater independence in a supportive environment. This gives more time to prepare to live on your own. Not everyone is prepared at 18 with school, work, etc. Being ready to be on your own at 18 can be very overwhelming. So having time to get yourself together is a bit stress relieving, and knowing that you don't have to have it all together at 18. I know now I'm at 18, I definitely don't have it all together. It's a lot of things that I still haven't figured out. And so with this program, I'm excited because now I have time to just kind of sit back, stay in a place where I have supportive parents who I know are going to be there by my side while I'm trying to figure out my life outside of my parents and outside of foster care. Why am I excited about participating in this program? I love the family that I'm with, and they are very supportive. So it's kind of a bit relief knowing that I have a supportive family where I'm at now, so I don't have to move and find somewhere else to stay who are going to support me. I will have time to come up with a plan for my life outside of foster care, because with parents always being there for you and doing everything for you, kind of calling you, now you have to figure out and come up with a plan of being on your own. But this gives you time from 18 to 21. That's a good amount of time to get yourself together, figure out what you're going to do, all the things you need to get out there in the real world and be successful. It also gives me more time to spend time with my bio family, especially my sisters. With this program, like I said earlier, you can be in the same home you've been in and still keep those connections with your bio family. I know that's important for a lot of people, because who knows where you can end up if the placement where you are not supporting you on this decision. Talking to young people about the program. The goal is to help them succeed. We are all about seeing youth flourish to their full potential. We want to see these youth grow tremendously and be whatever they want to be. And with the support of social workers, links workers, anyone who works with the youth of the age range, we can really see a lot of teens do some great things. Also, we need to let them know that they are equal parties in the decision making and transitional plan. They have a say in what happens in their lives in this time of transition. And with that being said, that will kind of make them feel more powerful than maybe they've ever felt, knowing, hey, now I have a say-so in what is going to happen in my life. A lot of people feel that they don't have say-sos now. So with this, they're going to really be excited about that. Also, let them know that the program offers support to all young adults' needs, not some needs, but all. Really reiterate that to them. This program is here to support every youth in whatever they may need support in, from financial to emotional to anything. This program and their support systems are going to be there every step of the way. Social workers will be there to offer guidance, support when you're making the decisions. When they're making the decisions, you guys are going to have their back. Nobody is making them a prisoner. They play a part in planning. You can choose whether you want to be involved in this program or go out into the world on your own. This is their choice. There's no pushing you. If you don't want to do it, you don't want to do it. But it's you guys' job to reiterate all the benefits and how important this would be for them if they stay in this program. And I'm going to turn it over to Erin, and she's going to talk to you about young adults as partners in this planning.
So young adults should be considered partners in planning rather than the recipients of services. So engage them as partners in planning so that they feel in control of planning for their future with your guidance and support. Help them identify supportive adults who they trust and know well, and who will help them develop and achieve their goals. It is important for us to provide continuous support as these young adults develop independent living skills. All young adults do not have the same needs, and we must recognize that they have valuable insights to what their individual needs are. And we must also believe that young adults can provide valuable contributions in planning for their future. Again, young adults should be empowered to make their own decisions. And finally, we must recognize that the young adult will be a part of the solution. It's important for youth approaching their 18th birthday to be informed of their option to remain in foster care 18 to 21, and the key is to begin talking with the youth early. Some youth will not be ready to make an informed decision about their future, so having ongoing conversations with the youth at least 6 months prior to their 18th birthday is vital to ensuring their understanding of their options and the benefits of the program. It is also important for youth to understand the eligibility requirements of the program and what they will need to do in order to remain eligible. So review the voluntary placement agreement for foster care 18 to 21 with the young adult or the youth, and make sure that they understand their rights and responsibilities as a young adult receiving extended foster care services. For youth who wish to participate in the program, the 90-day transition plan should be completed 90 days prior to the young adult's 18th birthday, and at that time is when the social worker and the youth should be discussing services that are needed to help the youth achieve the eligibility requirements of the program. And in addition, there should also be discussion in regards to committed and caring adults who can assist the young adult in achieving their goals and be permanent connections in the young adult's life. The social worker and youth should also begin discussing placement options and opportunities for increased responsibility, such as living in a least restrictive semi-supervised living arrangement, managing their own income, being responsible for their own transportation, and preparing their own meals. And these opportunities will help prepare the young adult for his or her transition to adulthood. For youth who do not wish to participate in foster care 18 to 21, the social worker should be sure to review the benefits of the program, make sure that they understand their right to re-enter the program at any time prior to turning 21, and complete the 90-day transition plan in order to begin planning for the youth's exit from foster care. And this is something that I felt very important to share with you guys. For me, it was very powerful. Part of the development process of this program was including SaySo, the SaySo Board of Directors, and asking them for feedback in regards to the initial policy that we had developed. And I also asked that they give me a list of reasons that they would choose to leave foster care at 18 versus reasons that they would choose to stay in foster care 18 to 21. And I was blown away with the answers that I got from these young adults. Under the list of reasons to leave, and these include they're just done, the restrictions of being in foster care, they want to do what they want, they're ready to be out on their own, it's their first chance to make their own choice or their own decisions, intimidation of court process, placement options. And what really struck me, the one that stood out to me the most is misinformation or no information. And there should really be no reason why these young adults are given no information on their options and the benefits of this type of program. But then stepping back and looking at all of these reasons, it also hit me that these are reasons for them to stay in a foster care 18 to 21 program. And then going to the right and looking at their reasons to take advantage of an extended foster care program, to have structure, education options, resources in the community, to have a safety net behind them. They're not yet ready to be out on their own. The stability the program would give, more time that the program gives, sibling contact and relationships with others, experiences, exposure, and preparation. This is exactly what this program should be. These young adults are telling us this is what they want and these are reasons why they should stay. And this is what our program should be. These are the things that foster care 18 to 21 should offer our young adults. And now I will hand it back over to Crystal, who will do a bit of a summary for us.
Thank you, Erin, and also to Susan for being here with us. And we also want to say a huge thank you to Angelica. I see a lot of you have already expressed in the chat box how well she did. We've told her she's a natural at speaking and sharing her perspective, and we love hearing the young adult perspective, especially on the benefits of this program, as well as some of the tips she had on having those conversations with young adults that we'll be working with as we're transitioning to using this program. So thank you to Angelica for being here. Today we've had lots of really great information on these two programs, and we really hope the pieces about implementation and messaging will be really helpful. We know a lot of the questions have been about the programmatic side of it, and Erin has mentioned a resource that we can use for that, and we'll also make sure that we share it. We did have one question around the forms for these programs. So accessing the forms for these programs, you'll see here there is a link that you can also get to through the handouts, or we will send it out through email. And with this link, you'll be able to access the forms. And you'll be able to register anytime after 12 o'clock tomorrow. So it is a go-to training link, but there's not an accompanying webinar or training with this. This was just the best way to make it available so that everyone could access the forms. So this is the link that you all have, and we'll make sure that it is shared with you. So I do have time for maybe just one or two more questions. So I'll look to and see ones that maybe come up. We did have quite a few questions, and Erin, I will pose this to you around if a youth at 18 is incarcerated or also ends up involved with law or on probation, will that affect their eligibility? So it may be two different questions, but if you could speak a little bit to that.
Sure. Neither of those things will affect their eligibility to enter into the program. As long as they were in the custody of a county agency upon turning 18 and they meet at least one of the 5 eligibility requirements and they have not yet reached their 21st birthday, then they would be eligible for the program.
All right, thank you. We also had a question about if a youth is currently on a CARS agreement, what will happen? Will that end? So if you could talk a little about that, because I saw quite a few questions about it.
So for those young adults who are currently on a CARS agreement, or if you have a young adult who will enter into a CARS agreement between now and December 31st, they will continue on that CARS agreement. They will continue to follow, or that case will continue to follow the same policy. The placements will continue to be funded the same way. However, if that CARS agreement is terminated and then 3 months later they come back and want to receive services again, at that time they would enter into the new program. They would sign the VPA for foster care 18 to 21. So all current CARs or any that will be entered between now and December 31st will continue to be CARs. There will be no transition of those CARs agreements to the new program.
All right, thank you for answering those two questions. I had a little bit of a shorter answer. And once again, as we said, there were lots of questions from our Guardianship Assistance Program section, as well as from our Foster Care 18 to 21 section. And we have all of those questions captured. And we'll be able to send out a follow-up document with answers to those questions. We just won't necessarily be able to get to all of them today. And Erin has shared with you for more case-specific or individual questions that you can reach out to her as well, and we'll have her contact information up on the slide on the screen shortly. So one thing that we want to do is talk a little about the impact on you and your agency. So we would love to hear from you all and have you type it into the chat box of one thing that you will do in response to what you have learned today. And this is really going to help with, you've gotten all of this information today, so what are some of our next steps? So one thing that you agree that you'll go ahead and start doing in preparation for this upcoming change. So we'll give you a few minutes to do that, and I will review and talk about some of the answers we may have. All right, we have several people starting to answer and many more typing. Looks like Catawba County is pulling together a team to work on implementation. I think pulling together teams are a great idea, so you have collective knowledge of working together on this change that is coming up. Information for our teenagers about the Foster Care 18 to 21 program, sharing that information with them is going to be one really important step, and hopefully you got some tips today on one of the ways to, to share that information and the messaging behind it, so that they really can see the benefits of the program. Also, we have educating staff and community stakeholders. That's going to be really important information. Once again, this webinar is recorded, and so sharing it and having other staff listen to it, but also sharing the information with our community partners is going to be very important. So I love that you're already thinking in that direction of starting to making sure we're including those stakeholders in this change. So it looks like there's lots of good ideas here on some next steps that we can start thinking about. On the screen here, as promised, we have contact information here for Erin, Angelica, and Susan. So if you have specific questions, or if you want to tell Angelica what a wonderful job she did, we can fill up her email box. And then once again, this contact information is, all the slides are in the handouts from this. So from the handouts, you can also get the contact information. So as I move forward, don't feel like you've completely missed your window to be able to capture that information.